of institutes of chartered tax in Nigeria. So I'm a member of Forum of Fellows at that platform too. Thank you very much. So tax matters is a very serious matter. So, and at the same time, it's something that needs everybody's attention and understanding. So with the new tax law, it's not like a business as usual. So increase in compliance, and at the same time, everybody needs to know how the new tax law affects them.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Honorable Jamo. So everybody needs to know how the tax laws affect them. Sorry for listeners. Before we go ahead, as a member of our team that is also supposed to be representing the NGOs at large, NGO Finance. Unfortunately, he can't be here with us physically, but he's going to be joining us online, so we can have a lot, because we would have questions for him. Prior to now, what my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Honorable Jamo, is NGOs don't necessarily pay tax, correct?
Yeah.
Beautiful. So before we go ahead, please, listeners, can you help us with, let me just quickly read the bio of Mr. Segun Babalola. So Mr. Segun Babalola is a financial specialist that represents the non-governmental organizations. Unfortunately, he's supposed to be here with us today, but he'll be joining us online. So please feel free to ask him any questions you want to ask. Drop your questions in the comment section. We have two experts. We have one expert, in fact, it's like the devil and the blue sea. We have the one with the yam, we have the one with the knife, and we have the yam, right? Yeah. So we just want to make this very, very interesting. So I'll quickly read his bio. Mr. Segun Babalola is a finance and development professional with over 11 years experience in the non-profit sector, specializing in financial management, compliance, and donor-funded programs. He has extensive experience supporting NGOs in navigating regulatory frameworks, including taxation, statutory reporting, and audit compliance in Nigeria. Segun has worked closely with government agency, development partners, and civil society organizations to strengthen financial accountability and sustainability. His expertise spans budgeting, financial reporting, internal controls, and the practical implications of involving tax policies on NGOs. He is passionate about strengthening systems that enable non-profits to remain compliant while maximizing program impact. Thank you, Mr. Segun Babalola, for joining us online. I hope you can hear us clearly. Please just be on standby because we'll have a lot of questions for you as well. So, back to you for listeners. What is your idea of NGOs when it comes to tax payment?
Okay, so my primary idea of NGOs is that we do not and we should not pay tax, especially company income tax. You know, first of all, because NGOs are set up for the public good. NGOs are set up for a charitable purpose. NGOs are not set up to necessarily generate an income. Any monies that NGOs receive are used for the benefit of others who are in one kind of vulnerable situation or the other. And so NGOs, when NGOs are being set up, the people who are setting them up, whether they are setting them up as incorporated trustees or as a company limited by guarantee, whichever one, there's no, there's no plan in place to have income being generated, to have sustainability. No, the plan is, how do I serve this category of persons? How do I serve this community? How do I make this team better? So there's no plan to necessarily generate income. Yes, we know we would apply for grants. We would try to get some money, but we are very comfortable with having periods in between where we don't have grants, for example, where we don't have projects that are being funded. We call them zero-cost projects. So out of the money that our fathers, husbands, brothers, wives are giving us, we are still carrying out projects, you understand? And so the idea that a lot of us come into this sector with is that we don't pay tax. In fact, a lot of us have to now learn that we should even pay tax on our own personal income, But even that personal income, as I said, a lot of it is project-based. So we apply for grants, we get it. We execute the projects, then it ends. There's always a lag between when I've ended one project and when I will get another project. And then you are still saying I should file returns, I should do. I say, what is this all about?
All right.
Honorable Jamo, please, let's puncture holes in that.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. So I think you are right, coming to that kind of assumption that as an NGO, we are not supposed to pay tax. And then before diving deep into the new tax law, of course, we know that the essence of this new tax law is just to come and increase the ease of doing business, not majorly to generate revenue. Of course, revenue generation comes as the fourth objective. So, but seamless administration is a top priority on this new tax law. So, businesses and organizations tend to benefit more than probably some other perceived stress that we may think the new tax law has brought in the area of compliance and some other areas too. Now, coming home to NGOs, under the section 163 of the new tax law, income tax exemption. So the section already listed the entities, the businesses, and at the same time, the incomes or services or goods that are exempted from tax, which is, say, CIT, for instance. The same thing applicable to withholding tax. Under this list,
in this one of our rules here, any acronym you're using, please help us to break it down.
Okay, thank you.
So you said CIT.
CIT is company income tax.
Thank you very much.
So that is the tax that every registered business are supposed to pay on their income generated at the end of the year.
Correct.
So withholding tax, of course, is an advanced payment of company income tax, right? It's not like a separate tax on its own. So because at the end of the day, you are still going to enjoy the credits of whatever you have paid as withholding tax to reduce your company income tax liability at the end of the year. So that's what I'm saying. It's not a new tax on its own, but an advanced payment of tax. Now, what I was saying is that the section of the law has already listed all the exempted businesses, which NGO is part of it, registered friendly societies, sporting activities, cooperative societies, and maybe charitable organization of a public character, so which the NGO now falls under.
You said sporting societies?
Sporting, yeah, an organization with sporting activities.
Sporting activities.
Yeah, they are exempted from paying CIT, company income tax. Cooperative societies too. So exempted. Same to the NGOs. So now, for the NGOs, there are some conditions attached to it.
Okay.
Which is also under the same section, that provided the income you are generating is from the core business of the organization, the humanitarian products and services. If you earn income from non-humanitarian services or income, it is taxable.
That's interesting. I'm sure for this has
and I'm going to explain it.
Explain it.
I'm going to, so like, the humanitarian services are the normal services that you render to benefit humanity, better the lives of the needy, and so on, as you have mentioned. The non-humanitarian services now come to play in a situation where an NGO is rendering a kind of advisory service. You are organizing an event, a paid event, and you earn income from that. Okay. You have an excess cash that you have placed maybe with Comercio for fixed deposit investments, which you are going to earn interest on. Those kind of incomes are regarded as non-humanitarian income, and they are strictly taxable. You can see that for NGO now, you are now like sitting on both sides. Some aspects of your business are tax exempted, while some aspects are taxable.
Okay. So, question, because it sounds clear, but it also sounds vague. Okay. So, as an NGO now, as someone that pioneers or runs an NGO, right? How can you prove to me? Because I'm the one that how can you prove to me that this money is not humanitarian? I can tell you that this money is, even though I placed that money with commercial partners, this money, even the interest on it, there was it's supposed to be used for humanitarian purposes. Exactly. So how do you? Because it sounds like a gray line. How do you prove it?
Okay. So you know that as an NGO,
yes,
you have your source of revenue.
Correct.
Like donation,
yes,
grants, funding, and so on like that. So those revenues, you are making use of the revenue for the humanitarian services.
Yes.
But if you now earn income on those revenue, like I mentioned, right? If you earn income on those revenue, the income is taxable.
So if I get a donation
Yeah.
of 1 million naira
Yeah.
and I run to commercial partners and I say, okay, please, this
it
1
for me.
million naira,
Yes.
can you please fix it so that I'll be able to pay salaries of the people who are going to prisons, pay salaries.
So if you earn interest income
I will
on
pay
that money,
on that 1 million naira.
there's a withholding tax applicable
On the
that.
interest earned.
Yes, because
Not on the 1 million naira itself.
No.
on the interest earned.
On the 1 million.
On the interest end, because that's why I try to explain
that
what
makes sense. I think
humanitarian
that's
and
good enough.
non-humanitarian means.
Okay.
Interesting. Very interesting. Wow. I think this was.
So, Taiwo, please, can I give one other example? Good. So I understand this one as you
Yes.
have explained.
Yeah.
On my donation that I received, I'm not paying any tax.
Yeah.
It's on the interest that is on that
If you
1
earn
million
interest
naira.
on that 1 million,
I will pay tax.
Yeah.
What if I now decide that, okay, I have an office. I will now rent out one small space in the office so that we can get money to even pay the rent on the office itself.
Yeah.
So, yes, that money is to pay the rent so that the office can exist and so that we can do our business. Am I going to pay tax on that money, that rent that I have been receiving? Or I decide to start selling notebooks or anything, but I'm doing something to give me some money.
Yeah.
Will I pay tax on
Yes, I
that?
think
So-
what Jamu said is clear.
Very clear. So those are non-humanitarian
You will
income.
pay.
And you will see that particular aspect is not even speaking to NGOs only. Even cooperative societies, even churches and mosques, they are facing the same compliance. Because what the law is saying is that if you have a church and then maybe the income from tithes, offerings, donation for church activities, all those ones are not taxable.
Yes.
But have a church, and apart from the ministerial activities of the church,
Yes.
I now have maybe a bookshop where we sell books, audio, cassettes, tapes, and all those ones. All the revenue you are generating from that line, they are all taxable. But income from the normal church activities are non-taxable. The same thing with mosques too. If you have, maybe you have a central mosque where you do your normal program and then you collect donation from people, contribution is non-taxable. But if you have a small shops where you now sell Islamic materials, prayer mats, Quran and some other things, and you generate income from that,
it is
it is taxable. The same thing applies to cooperative societies.
Okay.
So all these are well explained in the new tax law.
Very interesting. Question 2. So I know for NGOs, correct me if I'm wrong, Felicitas, I know NGOs engage in lots of fundraising.
Yes.
So in situations whereby NGOs, sometimes an NGO might engage in some form of fundraising, it might be a book launch, right? And the funds that come in, maybe a book launch about human rights or something. And, people come and there's no price tagged for buying that book. People just come and just say, okay, we are supporting this book launch with, say, 1 million naira, 2 million naira, 3 million naira. And they are giving, in exchange fundraising, they are giving those books. So it's almost like, do you get, like I'm selling?
Buying and selling.
Yes, it's almost.
That is it.
But the reality is that it's actually fundraising.
It's a fundraising activity.
Actually fundraising. Now, my question on that matter now is, those funds that come from the fundraising, are they taxable?
All right, thank you. So, under the new tax law, right, donation to registered organizations like NGOs, they are non-taxable. In fact, even you as a donor, you have the opportunity under the law to deduct the amounts you have donated as a deductible expenses for the computation of your own tax. So what I'm trying to say is that for the amounts you have donated to an NGO, you are not going to be taxed.
Wow.
You can see it's a benefit from both ends. And at the same time, that money that is coming to the NGO as a revenue to the NGO too is not taxable. But now coming to the book launch, You understand? So the law has already defined what taxable income is. Income from sales or transfer of goods and services. You understand? So if there's a transfer of goods and services that is taxable by nature, it means you have to pay tax.
So back to that same scenario. So that means as an NGO, I rather just call it fundraising, not book launch.
Yeah.
If it's fundraising and people
And
come
it's just a donation.
and it's just donation,
Yeah,
it's okay.
it's okay.
And then we give the
interesting.
books out as gifts. Thank you. Thank you for donating to us.
So-
we give you the book,
Yeah.
right?
You give them souvenirs.
exactly.
The books are souvenirs.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, that's so interesting. Thank you so
You know,
much.
it's a matter of law. So
you need to understand
the technical area of the law is just the interpretation. So once you understand what the position of law is saying, and then of course the revenue also is going to assess that entity for tax purpose. I mean the NRS, the Nigerian Revenue Service also, they understand what the law is saying. So I'm very sure that will be clear.
So there's something that also caught my interest when you were talking. You said something about what's it called? That even me, the donation I make, right, to
A registered
NGOs,
of
right?
friendly societies. Yeah.
So maybe it's, for example, as Christians, right? You say, okay, I'm sowing a seed,
yeah.
right? And I have it documented,
Yeah.
right? I can actually request for that, the taxable value of that money I sowed
To
as seed
recover it.
to be returned back, to be taken off my tax.
All right.
Correct, right?
Okay. I'm getting you.
So, for example, I say, okay, maybe I'm a good Christian. I believe in sowing seeds.
Yeah.
And for example, this year I say, okay, I want to sow a seed of maybe there's a project happening in the church.
Yeah.
And I say, okay, this project, I want to support this project, and I want to sow a seed of say 2 million or 3 million, and I sow that seed, and it's time for me to do my personal income tax, right?
Okay.
So if I document that, the tax on that amount can be deducted from my payable tax. Is that what it means?
All right. So let me explain.
Okay.
So in line with the tax law,
Yes.
as an individual, you cannot claim expenses. And I'm going to explain.
Okay.
But you can only claim relief.
Okay.
However, if you are a registered business, you know, when we say individuals can be maybe Lanre, Tosin,
Yes, correct.
right?
Very correct.
Then at the same time, a registered business enterprise company that is not a limited liability company
Correct.
is also classified as individual
Correct. So
under the tax law, sole
Correct.
proprietorship.
Correct.
So if you register your business and that business is now the one making such donation, you can claim it as expenses of the business. But as an individual, you cannot claim it in your payee. You can only claim relief allowance, which is your statutory deduction like pension, NHF, NHIS, and then the rent relief, which is 20% of your annual rent, or 500,000, whichever one that is lower from the two. So those are the reliefs you can claim as individual. But if you do such kind of donation under a registered business, you can claim it as expenses.
Awesome.
So still on this issue, I mean, this is like it really explains. It explains the issue. You know, sometimes you are telling people make donations. You'll be able to claim it back. I mean, just using layman's language
Yes.
from your tax. But from what you have said, it's very clear that even if individuals give us 1 million, 10 million, they cannot claim it
As expense.
as well. Okay, as a relief.
Absolutely.
It doesn't make any difference. They cannot claim it back. It has to be through their companies or their business if they have a business.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is
Thank you
very
so much.
clear.
This has been,
Thank you.
I think this has been very, very enlightening. Very enlightening. And for our participants out there, please, we always like to tell people, that's why we tell you, join every last Tuesday of the month. We always give you for free of charge. Free of charge. So if you are there and you're wondering, how does this pertain to me? From what Jamil has said, you realize that in many ways it pertains to you. He talked of personal income tax. He also talked of company income tax. If you're someone that you're a philanthropist, you give, right? We also find that here it's also good for you to give through your company. So you through your business, through your registered business. So these things are documented, right? And if you have an NGO if you currently run an NGO or you run maybe a society or you're about to start a cooperative or anything like that, you need to understand these tax laws and how it affects your business so that, like Jamil said, it's a win-win actually. I think the federal government, from what you're saying, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, because I think the federal government is quite clear.
Yeah.
And they've made room for relief and also room for claims. And
Exactly.
I think there's clarity, but we just need to understand it.
Yeah.
We just need more reliefs.
So the essence of that is actually also to improve the compliance. You know, one of the canon of taxation is that the tax law has to be very simple and it has to be convenient, right? It has to be convenient. So if the tax law is not so simple, if it's so complicated,
Yes.
it's going to reduce the level of compliance.
Yes, very true.
So, but when it's so clear to everybody, at least to a layman on the street,
Correct.
then that increases the level of compliance.
Yes.
And at the same time, now increase the revenue the government will generate at the end of the day.
Correct. I think for Nigerians, basically, I think we just want, and I think this current administration has shown is showing some form of accountability. I think Nigerians are not worried about paying tax. All we're worried about is there going to be accountability? I know in the Western world, I used to wonder then, but now it's making sense. A lot of our celebrities in Hollywood, a lot of, top shots in the United States, you see them, they're heavily invested in so much philanthropy.
Yeah.
So much. And I just wonder, these people, they're not even Christians. But now it's making sense because, it's a win-win situation when the tax laws are clear. Because if I earn, like, say, $30 billion a year, it's so that it reduces my own exposure to tax.
Exactly.
It's good for me to be open to non-governmental organizations, to open to humanitarian services that I can support and reduce. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You're right.
So we have a question from one of us.
Just one question,
Yeah.
Abby.
All right.
You mentioned sporting organizations that are into sporting activities. In fact, this is the first time I'm hearing that. So I was wondering, okay, what kind of organizations would fall into that category? Maybe because also we as an NGO, we work sometimes with children in conflict with the law. I know that some of the people in the audience, whether online or physically, who we partner with, actually work with agencies, Legal Aid Council of Nigeria and other NGOs that work very well with children in conflict with the law, and some of the activities that we ordinarily, do for this category of persons are sporting activities, as in sports to engage them both physically, mentally, emotionally. So I'm just wondering, what kind of organizations, do you have any examples or ideas?
Okay. If you are registered as a sports organization, say for instance, a football club,
Like in Arsenal.
Manchester United,
Maybe.
that kind.
So you understand, or some other football club, maybe in Lagos and so on like that. So provided the income or the revenue is within their sporting activities, like I've mentioned.
So is that why they pay footballers so much money?
That is like good news, by the way. I never knew this.
So that is on the income tax. However, if they provide a kind of vetable service, they will be expected to deduct VAT and then remit that VAT and also file with the revenue service.
Interesting. I don't know if you're able to answer this, but I'm wondering why though? Why do we exempt them?
Okay, for tax purpose too, or tax law, policies generally sometimes have to encourage some aspects of the economy as well.
Right.
You understand?
Right.
So that's a little kind of exemption or relief for the NGO, for cooperative societies, for sports activities, or friendly societies. Friendly societies.
Interesting. We have a question from one of our participants, and I think it's a very interesting question. I can answer it, but I will allow you to answer it based on your discussion. It says, question. So if you have a church that has a school, does that mean the school would now be taxed?
All right. So thank you very much. So if you look at the income tax exemption, like I've mentioned, right? So there are some income for schools too that are not taxable.
Okay.
You understand? Which are maybe for educational activities. You understand? Provided it is within that particular line of educational activities. However, it is not all their income that is not taxable. You understand? It's not all their income that is not taxable.
So, for example, now you just have a church that has a university,
Yeah.
and there's income, school fees. I don't know what that form of income comes to, but the one that comes off the top of my head is, usually school fees, right? That's the major source of income that is generated from schools. That's school fees income is taxed. Or is it when you take that school fees income now and say, okay, take it and place it to the bank, the interest on it is what is taxed?
Absolutely.
Beautiful, awesome. Thank you so much, Honorable. I hope you're okay with that answer.
Let me also add to that. Apart from that, in as much as they generate profits, don't forget that we are not taxing that particular revenue.
Yes.
This time around, we are taxing the profits.
Yes, correct.
You understand?
Yes.
We are taxing the profits at the end of the day when they make income and they've net off all their expenses, and at the end of the day they have profits. So that is not tax exempted. But I mentioned that under Section 163, so it mentions that plays, performances that are being carried out for educational activities are totally exempted.
Beautiful. Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, I am just piggybacking on your question. I want to bring it home for us who are actually in the NGO sector. So, like a church has a secondary school, they are paying school fees. They also have development levy. Then maybe they would ask for sports fees. Then they have clubs. At the beginning of the time, they might break down these fees. They have maybe they will uniforms. Then they have books. The principal collects all these fees. Yes, they have an admin department and whatever. Out of all this category of fees, which ones are they paying tax on? It's a church that has the school or an NGO that has the school.
Okay, so like I've mentioned, income is not tax. Tax is not applicable
to revenue
on the revenue in general.
Okay.
So it's on the profit at the end of the day. At the same time, the salaries that you pay to the staff.
So all these things, when the school collects it, it's not taxable.
So all these things, there are some of the income that will be exempted from tax.
The one that is in line with education, directly
school fees.
So the ones that are not exempted will be net off all the costs they've incurred as well. Then they make profit at the end of the day. They are going to now assess them based on the profits. But if they make loss, they are not going to pay anything. In fact, even if you are not even a school, so that is another beauty of the new tax law. Before now, if you are a company and you generate loss at the end of the year, you are still going to pay what we call minimum tax. But in line with the new tax law, if you are generating a negative result at the end of the day in terms of loss, then it means you are not going to pay tax based on the new tax law.
Okay, I think for me, one question is, because we're almost done today, we'll just extend a bit, maybe 10 to 15 minutes after our close periods. If I have an NGO now, and I'm never in my life filed for tax before, and I'm on this program, and I'm thinking, what is the first step to take? What is the first step I should take as an NGO?
If you have never filed for tax,
yes.
So the first thing is you need to register for tax. And the reason why you are registering for tax, I mentioned that you can render two types of services, and you can generate revenue from those two lines. So when you register for tax, you'll be given a tax identification number.
So you need to get a TIN.
You need to get a TIN. So with that TIN, when you generate revenue that are taxable, of course, you have to file your return. with the NRS, and they will give you tax clearance. You understand? So your evidence of filing constantly and your tax clearance is the evidence of compliance that you are going to need. However, you know, I mentioned that some organizations are exempted from paying tax, right? Even to file tax returns, the law is not so explicit to say that, okay, because you are not paying tax, you understand, you have to file returns. No. But for administrative purpose, so it is encouraged that you have to file your return, even though you are not mandated by law to file returns. And one of the reasons is what you just mentioned, that if you are in a situation where you need to provide the evidence of tax compliance, you are going to need a tax clearance certificate from the FRS. And without you filing returns with the NRS, you cannot get tax clearance certificates. I don't know if that is very clear enough.
Yes.
So let me just recap that. So in your this section, if you're here with us today, an NGO, and you're thinking of starting an NGO, and you've never in your life filed for tax, the first thing you need to do is you need to register.
Yeah.
You need to register, and you get your TIN. It's very important. Get your TIN number. At least that's the first thing to do. And then from there, you said, what's the next thing you said? You said you can now file. So it's also very important you keep records.
So even if you don't have any taxable income and you want to file, you can file new, zero.
Yes, correct.
At least the NRS have your records and they can give you
a tax clearance
at the end of the day when you request for it at the end of the period.
Wow. So I think even for anybody that is here, an individual, I think it's also very important. I think this also helps because it helps you to keep track of money coming in and money going out. A lot of NGOs I've met over the years, I know now it's getting more structured, have been a bit careless in documenting because it just starts as, sometimes it starts as an idea. And you start talking to some people and donations start coming in, right? Before you say it, you're overwhelmed. And those donations, immediately it's coming in, you're pushing it to the cause that you set out to push it to. And there's no record keeping. Now, in the long run, when we've now gotten to this area of tax, there's a bit of confusion, right?
In fact, even beyond just NGO, I used to tell some of my friends and colleagues who are discussing about tax matters and people I advise that the easiest way to manage tax is to comply. And for you to be compliant, you have to keep a proper record.
Yes.
Because if you don't keep a proper record, you are going to pay the same tax twice. Because by the time you are being assessed for tax, the revenue service wants to see the evidence. Oh, you want to claim that, okay, this income is not taxable. Give us
proof.
The proof.
It was a grant. Where is the proof?
Want to see the
document. Was a donation. Where is the proof?
You understand? Want to see the contract document. Want to see the proof of exchange of service. So that we know the nature of service and for us to be able to ascertain in line with the law that this service is not taxable. If you don't have those records to be able to prove that, it will be assumed to be taxable income and it's going to be taxed.
So
the importance of record keeping in managing tax cannot be underestimated. That is the truth.
So for those of you that are just individual here saying, no, this doesn't pertain to me, it pertains to you.
Even for an individual.
Keep records of your expenses and your income.
For you to be able to enjoy the rent relief in your organization, you have to provide
proof.
You understand? That, oh, this is my rent agreement with the landlord. This is the amount I've paid as rent. This is my rent receipt, and so on. So that for audit purpose, those records, they will be verifiable and you can be able to enjoy the relief.
Okay, so we have some very quick questions. Let me just quickly run you through it. So question 1, VAT returns and how many?
Thank you very much. So under the provision of the new law, right? The law states that a taxable person must file VAT return, right? You must deduct and remit VAT and then file return as well. Taxable person. Don't forget that we've already defined taxable person as a person now can be business, can be individual, right? Who earns or generates taxable income. However, the next section to that, which is section 182 now this time around, talking about the VAT exemption, right? So the next section to that now also stated that even though you are a taxable person, right? Now there are some non-taxable persons that the law has mandated them to deduct VAT, like the federal government, ministries, departments and agencies, state and local governments. They are not to pay income tax, but the law says that in addition to the taxable persons, these people too, or these entities or these organizations, they should also deduct VAT. In addition to that, the next subsection to that also states that the revenue may appoint any registered organization for the purpose of collection of VAT. Now, driving home to an NGO. If you're an NGO and you deduct VAT, maybe by virtue of rendering a taxable or a vatable service, then you have to remit on or before 14th of the following month of the transaction, and you will now file returns on or before 21st of the following month. You know, in the previous law, remittance and filing used to be 21st on or before 21st of the month following the month of the transactions. But the new tax law has technically distinguished the two. That, okay, for remittance, when you collect VAT, go and remit it on or before 14th of the month following the month of transaction.
File before 21st.
While filing is 21st, as it was in the previous law.
Thank you so much. So, so that's going to be like on a case-by-case basis. Anytime, as long as you collect VAT, as long as VAT
at the end of the month.
At the end of the month, so it can be every month.
So every month, of course, it's expected. So this is it.
So it's every month.
When you see how many times you file for 12 times in a year.
Wow.
So what that means is that even for the month that you don't have that kind of transaction, you still file new. Just to meet up or to comply with the provision of the law.
Okay, so second question, so must we remove withholding tax from trainers and speakers at workshops? I have a feeling that question came from Felicitas.
Thank you very much. You know, like we mentioned, right? So the trainers, speakers at seminars, of course, their income are not tax exempted. So withholding tax are applicable.
So at the same time, like for example, a project that is being run by the NGO, right? The artisans that come to work on the project, whatever you pay them is taxable too.
It's taxable because their income is taxable.
It's taxable. Okay, that's fine. Thank you so much. How can we easily remit withholding tax? Is it to the state of residence of the person concerned? So, for example, I'm sure you understand. I'm not going to remit to Lagos State, or if I'm in Ogun State, am I ready to go there?
Very clear. So, in terms of the withholding tax for companies and then individuals, for companies, you remit to NRS, Nigerian Revenue Service.
Okay.
But for individuals now, individuals have already explained that individuals, maybe company, enterprise, partnership, or sole proprietorship like that. So it's a matter of what we call a residency rule, where that particular individual resides. If you are inviting a speaker, for instance, from Ogun State or Abuja, and you deduct withholding tax from maybe the fee you are paying that person, and you want to remit that. If it's from Abuja, you remit to FCT, Internal Revenue Service. If it's from Ogun State, you remit to Ogun State Internal Revenue Service, Plateau State Internal Revenue Service, Kano State Internal. But if the person resides in Lagos, you are free to remit it to Lagos State Internal Revenue Service. It's a function of the residency rule.
You know, funny thing, because I live in Lagos, I just always assume that it's only LRS.
So, a follow-up question. So is it easy? Can I just find this information online and pay in the bank in Lagos? I mean, is it easy for me to do that?
Yeah, very easy. So all these internal revenue services that we're talking about, just go to their websites.
Yes, I
Places
had the
State
personal
Internal Revenue
experience.
Service. You see all the
Okay,
information,
yes.
how you pay, and then send the schedule, send all the necessary documents to them, and you are good to go.
I remember on this issue of residence, I remember earlier on in my career, I worked with Zenith Bank, and I was posted to, at some point, I was working in Lagos, and I was posted to Akute. So there was like a bit of confusion.
Okay.
Is Akute Lagos or is Akute Ogun State?
Akute is
So,
Ogun State,
and I was living in Lagos.
Yes.
But you know, Akute is still like, you
Exactly.
know. So it was confusing. Okay, so when it came to remitting tax, I know it was, we had to be going back and forth to head office because like, we didn't take people to move us to this place or people moved us here. You know, until they sorted it out, they had to remit it to Ogun State.
Exactly.
They had to remit our tax, the tax on our salary to Ogun State. So I think that's, yeah.
So
that's
even
very
that applies to most of the boundaries locations around Ogun State too.
Yeah.
When you talk of Songoi 4, when you're talking of Akute, you're talking of maybe Mowe Bafo and some other, you know, those areas, they share boundary with Lagos State.
Correct.
And most of the people in living in those areas are working in
Lagos State,
and
yes.
collecting their salaries in Lagos. So I know that there has been some arrangement between the Lagos
Maybe
Internal
sharing
Revenue
formula,
Service
yes.
and not a sharing formula per se, but a repatriation of such income to Ogun State.
Everybody has to sit up now. Every state is trying to.
So that harmonization is there.
Okay, so we have another question. How do we show tax compliance since there's no more tax exemptions? I think this question has been covered.
Yeah.
I think this question has been covered.
Yeah, with your
Tax clearance.
tax clearance
Yes,
certificate.
I think this question has been covered. So first of all, register for your TIN. No, first of all, keep records.
Yeah.
Register for your TIN. File
Very
for your
important.
tax. Then request for your tax clearance certificate. I think those are the four steps you mentioned.
So it means you've complied with
Yes.
the tax. Yeah.
The next question says, how do we calculate payee to be as low as possible? E.g., someone said that they pay about $2,500. I think that's in dollars, I'm sure. Tax on, is that dollars or? Okay, 2,500 tax on a salary of 100K.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. So when we're talking about the salary now, we're talking of 100,000 monthly, right?
Yes.
So I think what is very, very important, right, is to stay within the provision of the tax law. You understand? Explore some deliberate provisions. I don't want to call it weakness. You understand? I remember then when we were still writing ICANN, then they will say, okay, tax management is exploiting the weaknesses in the tax law for tax benefit or to pay lower tax. But you know, as you grow up in your research, you understand that all these things, are they weaknesses in the tax laws? No, if there are weaknesses or loopholes, then why have they not blocked those loopholes all this while? But I realized that they are deliberate provisions in the tax law. They just try to relax some things.
So mitigate
So
the cash.
you understand? So that people can comply voluntarily without necessarily enforcing them to comply. So now what I'm trying to say is that for you to pay lower tax, you need to stay within the confine of the provision of the tax law. So the new tax law has already said that if you earn 800,000 taxable income per annum, you are not going to pay any tax.
So let me
And I'm going to explain that when I say taxable income, you know, it's different from your income or say your gross salary.
Yes.
Taxable income means that you earn a gross emolument or gross salary or gross income, and then we have already deducted some statutory deduction and some other reliefs.
Okay.
So the balance after deducting the reliefs, like your rent relief, let's say your rent relief is 300,000. Your pension, let's say your pension at the end of the year, let's say is 20,000 or 30,000 per month, 360 per annum. That's like 660.
Yeah.
If at the end of the day, your taxable income is still around 800 it means you are going to pay zero tax. So somebody earning 100,000 is very, very likely to fall within that bracket.
Correct.
Because
100,000 times 12.
you understand, that's 1.2. By the time you are going to remove pension, you are going to remove rent relief, it can come to that.
About 800.
You understand? So you may not pay tax. However, if you now fall to maybe 900 taxable income or whatever, 800 out of the 900
It's not taxable.
is zero. So it's just the 100,000, you just pay 15% on.
Wow, interesting.
And you know, when you now say, okay, maybe 15% of 100,000, maybe you're talking about 1,500, right? So that's what it means.
Thank you so much.
So for the person paying this 2,500, probably the taxable income is not like 1 million.
Correct.
You understand? Or so, or around that figure.
Correct. Thank you so much. So it's very important. I think I'll ask this question. Where can we go and look at this tax law? So if I'm here on this call today and I'm in diaspora, I'm not in Nigeria, right? Or maybe I'm in Nigeria, I'm just someone that I really don't pay attention to these things. But if after this session, I say, I want to go and even read these Nigerian tax laws, where can I find it?
All right. Thank you. So the new tax law is everywhere.
Wow.
Even if you go to,
Let me just Google.
if you go to the website of NRS.
So the website of NRS.
You see it there. So the Fiscal Reform Committee also, if you go to their website, you get it there. You understand? And you download the original copy. The gazetted copy of the new tax.
I would just encourage everybody on this call today, whether you have an NGO or not, please go back, look at that reform, look at those policies, read over and over again, take it in, so that you understand better when you receive your income, or if you're running a business, or even if it's an NGO. Thank you so much, Honorable Jamo. I think the last question we have here before I go over to Felicitas is, it says, since salary, so before we go back, it says calculating your payee, it was very clear. If you earn any excess above 800K, that excess above the 800K is what is taxable per annum. Sorry, I have to add that. So if you earn 800K per annum, taxable income.
Taxable income.
Correct.
So let me explain again. If you earn a particular salary per annum, and after deducting all the reliefs, and then like the pension, NHIF, HMO is not there.
Okay, HMO is there.
NHIS.
Yes, NHIS.
You understand? Contribution to NHIS.
NSITF too.
NHF, NSITF.
Yes.
So all the statutory deductions.
Correct.
So if you contribute to those statutory schemes, they will be removed from your annual salary.
Correct.
Then at the same time, your rent relief.
Correct.
So after removing those ones, the remaining amount is what we call taxable income. So if your taxable income is 800,000 and below, you are not going to pay tax. But if it is above that 800,000, you will only pay tax on the excess of that 800,000.
Awesome. So if you're a salary earner here, like me, go and look
and the rate is not fixed.
Go and look at your breakdown.
So the rate is not fixed. I need to explain that too. That excess is not fixed at 15% too. So it's a graduated rate. You understand? So it's a graduated rate.
So please, it's very important. This is what we're saying about record keeping as well. Right? Go and look at the breakdown and see what is your taxable income. Also, I think we went over and over again on the taxable income for NGOs. We said anything that comes as donation, the core revenue from it is not taxable.
Yeah.
But whatever returns or profit you make on that balance, on that principal, I'll call it principal. whatever profit you make on that core revenue is what is taxable. Okay, thank you so much. So the last question I have here before I move over to Felicitas is saying, since salaries are according to projects, so in some months, staff may not have a salary. This is for NGOs. This is peculiar to NGOs. Yeah. Staff may not have a salary, or some months, the salary may be higher than other months. How do we file annual returns?
All right. So as I've mentioned, so once you are obligated or mandated to deduct tax, you have to file a return.
Yes.
Even in the months that there was no or there's no deduction, there. You have to file a return.
Correct.
That is one. So now, for a kind of employment arrangements where your salary now varies. Maybe some months you don't get paid because your salary is tied to projects.
Yeah.
There's no pay that was deducted during the month, and there
So
won't be
you
any
put in nil.
remittance. You just file nil.
Nil.
You understand? So because the tax is going to be on the income you earn for that particular period. So you don't pay on what you don't earn.
Thank you so much. Felicitas, I think over to you.
Yes. Oh, okay. So, Taiwo, at this point, can we just call on Shegun to say something? Because Shegun,
Okay. Is he on the call?
yes.
Okay.
He is. He's Shegun is in the thick of things. So I work. Okay. So I'm a lawyer. Yes. So I've always worked in
Obviously.
programming, in
Human rights.
projects,
Yes.
implementation. But Shegun works as the finance officer in the NGO. So he's the one that really deals with these particular matters. So if he's available, yes, can he say something specific to the challenges that he faces as he tries to carry out his own,
Okay,
duties?
fine. So I think he's on the call. Shegun Babalola, please, over to you.
Yes, good morning, everyone, and those listening to us. And
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Shegun.
Good morning, Shegun.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Please confirm you can hear me. Okay. So thank you so much for you've done a great job with that's I'm talking about Mr. Lawada, about making it as simple as possible for people who are in the NGO space. But there's a lot of challenges that we still have in this space in terms of compliance with the tax, especially the new tax law. So, for example, there is the stress of managing the Inland Revenue Service. So I'm taking it from where you stopped. So I know that when it comes to periods where there are no funds,
Go ahead.
Lost him.
within tax law. Hello, can you hear me?
So we seem to have missed something. Can you repeat yourself, Shegun? So we seem to have lost him.
Yes.
But I have an idea of that particular statement he was making.
Some feedback.
Yes. So practically speaking, when we have periods when we don't have any grants, I think this is what he was referring to. With FIRS or LIRS, they are not as nice as you are sitting here. Honestly, they come and they insist that yes, even if you are not earning, even if you don't have a grant, you must still have some money. And they just try to, in quotes, bully you to ensure that they will give you an assessment that you still have something to pay. So, of course, he's the one dealing directly with them, but the reports that he'll be giving back to people like me is that, look, they are still insisting that we must pay something. They'll also be asking you questions like, how do you people come to work? How are they still coming to work? Things like that. And he's like, but we haven't received any money. So they really make it quite difficult.
All right, let me explain. Thank you very much. So I want to also state that the NRS people, of course, they are our friends. They are my colleagues, and we work very well too, you understand? So, they are not going to do anything that is not within the provision of the law because they know the risk. You understand? They know the risk and they know the implication. So nobody will want to also try to toy with that because you don't want to find yourself on the wrong side of the law.
Correct.
Right? So that is where the filing that we're talking about also comes into play for ease of administration. For instance, if I'm the NRS, you don't file with me, I don't have your record. How do I assess whether you people make taxable income or not? You understand? And in line with the provision of the law, if the revenue service cannot establish, you understand, as a during a particular period that this is your income, or they cannot ascertain your income because of probably lack of record or information. They have that authority.
Yes.
You understand?
use
To
their discretion.
assess that particular business based on BOJ. We call it best of judgments. That we feel that since we don't have any information about you, we feel that you are existing and you are still running.
See your
you
final
understand?
face.
So you understand?
All your staff are looking good. People
They
are
are
making
looking
money.
good. So people are making money. So we can assess that, okay, the way we look at you, you have a very big advice and stuff like that. Maybe we'll just assess you to say you have made a revenue of 100 million in this year, and you have to go and pay tax on that. So they also know that if you are being assessed based on the best of judgments, you now come out with your record to say, no, we did not earn to up to 100 million, no. We only earn 10 million throughout the year, and this is our record. That is what they want to achieve. You understand? So it doesn't mean, okay, if they serve you a particular amount, you have to just go and pay, right? You need to now defend yourself with record and justification to say that based on the available records, this is what I made, or I did not make any income. Once they can establish that, they will not enforce any liability on you because the law did not say you should pay liability on that zero revenue.
Thank you so much. So it's very important to file.
Yeah.
So back to the beginning. Keep records,
Keep records.
register,
File your
file,
return.
get your tax clearance.
Exactly.
Follow those 4 steps.
File zero,
Even if it's file
We are
zero,
going to
file
file
zero.
zero
Yes.
for ease of administration.
So I have one question. So for my own end, because I always look at it and say, as an investor, as a potential investor, as an NGO now, looking at an NGO that is saying, where can I put my funds? I still want these funds. I don't want them taxed. We have some government instruments that are not taxable. I think the only government instrument we have now is the bonds, the government bonds.
Yeah, the federal government.
The federal government, yeah, yes, and the saving bonds. So if as an NGO, I say, okay, these funds that I've received, I lock them in a federal government bond or in a savings bond. Whatever income I earn on it, I'm not taxable on that.
It's not
Beautiful.
taxable.
So information is key.
It's not taxable.
Okay.
So information is key. So even if as an investor too, if you're out there, a retail investor, and you're just thinking, I want to still reduce my exposure to tax. Like I said, they're not loopholes. They are
deliberate provisions.
Yes. So it's just for us to educate ourselves well enough to find out how this thing works for us, the win-win situation. If you're out there too, you're also an individual retail investor, you can look at the savings bonds. Look at those savings bonds. They're not taxable instruments. Look at the government bonds, they're not taxable instruments. What we have in our pension funds too is not taxable. So increase your pension donation.
Yeah.
So increase your pension contribution. Because if you increase what you're contributing in your pension fund account, it also kind of helps you to reduce your exposure to tax. Right?
And it's your money at the end of the day.
And it's still your money at the end of the
Like
day.
you are saving.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So thank you so much. Thank you, Felicitas. Thank you so much, Honorable Jamo. Thank you so much, Shegun, for joining us.
A question?
Okay, there's a question. Okay, so let's quickly look at that question. Okay, so we have, how quickly does it take to get your tax clearance certificate? I think we've already handled that. Okay, so is Shegun Babalola, can we hear you? Please, I think he has some things to say.
Yes, okay, thank you so much. So another challenge that is also very prominent in the space is the issue of donor. You know, these donors, most NGOs rely on donor funding, and sometimes the donors do not want you to pay VAT, for example. On this, their money they are giving to you. The money is coming to develop. Why are we also? It's also making the amount that you are supposed to use to support the development of the country or the state or for whatever reason, makes the value of that money drops. So, for example, you are saying I should pay VAT. Yes, the new VAT tax law has allowed that I can seek a refund on the VAT if you have justified that this VAT is consumed, for humanitarian service. But again, there is still that kind of issue between you and the funder. The funder may decide to say, okay, I'm not going to give you this money if you are going to spend it so much, use my money to pay tax. So that's another issue that we also have, in the space when it comes to the tax. Then as for the rent relief, yes, it's a good one, but again, it's still a big challenge in the sense that we have personal, for example, we have people living in houses paying over ₦1 million rent. And you are saying the cap I can go is a minimum of 500,000 or 20%. So it's, those are other areas. And again, you mentioned something about the inland revenue service across the state. There's also the challenge of some of them not having automated process, like what you can file online. I can give you an example clearly of Edo State. You want to pay tax in Edo, they say, no, their system is not working. Come to the state. Or Kaduna State. I have to send, I have to tell somebody in Kaduna to go and pay in the office in Kaduna. So these are some of the challenges I also have when looking at the residency rule remitting some of these taxes. And let's stop here.
So Shegun has talked about the practical challenges of a finance officer. So this is your equivalent person, the NGO, and this is what is cracking his head on a daily basis. So he's very right. Edo State will tell you come physically.
Exactly.
Kaduna State will tell you no, you must send the money. You can't do anything online. And then we have our own donors who are giving us money and are telling us, I'm sorry, you can't pay VAT with my money. No matter how you explain to them. So it's a problem. We are going back and forth. We are losing time on the project. You are supposed to have started 1 month ago. 2 months is going. You are still trying to negotiate with your donor agencies to say, we can get this back at the end of the day. And they're like, no, we don't want that. So these are practical challenges that he has mentioned, at least those two. So do you have any advice?
Thank you very much. So I think I align with what Shegun said. In line with the provision of the new tax law, there are some items that we call VAT exempted items. And there are some that are zero rated.
Okay.
So VAT exempted items, maybe like the basic food items, agricultural produce, pharmaceutical products, and so on like that, as listed under the Part 4 of the new tax law. Don't forget that the law just lists the items and services exempted. If your services is not part of what was exempted, you understand, it means that it's vatable. Right? So the humanitarian service now fall under zero rated. We have another category called zero rated items. For the zero rated items, right, we said, okay, you are going to pay, you can be assessed for VAT. You pay VAT, but you are going to claim it back. You understand? Because you are actually you are selling some product, for instance, that are not VATable. But maybe some of the things you now use to now package or to render those services, they are VATable. That is why you pay VAT on them, but you are now going to claim it back. So we call those ones zero-rated items. So I understand what Shegun is saying, that, okay, now this is the provision of the law, that, okay, you will pay the VAT, then you now claim it back. But from the counterparties, who they are dealing with now is not having challenges. Okay, why should I go ahead and pay? But I think it's an area that we still need to really look into and manage very well.
Very well, very well. I think
Yes.
I don't know if it's going to be responsibility of the NRS to educate people more. I think there has to be more education around tax reliefs, payments, and all that, so that everybody is aware. Like for me, as long as I've been in the finance industry for a long time, and I'm so oblivious to anything tax, my ears just started stretching within this new administration.
Yes.
When I just started tax, and this is, if I'm in this space and I'm so oblivious to it, you can imagine people that are in other spaces, maybe pharmaceutical, NGOs, it's something that it's been a gray area for years.
Yeah.
I think there has to be more education around it. So, Honorable Jamal will be bringing you over again to talk about just tax generally. Felicitas, I don't know if you have anything for us.
So I will just close with a question that one of my colleagues sent to me while we were here. And it's a question that we always ask ourselves in the NGO sector. So this tax law, I know that he mentioned that the concept behind it is to, further ease of doing business. So the question she had asked was, is it citizen-centered? Is it centered on the human person? Because for us, everything must be centered on the human person. All our projects, the essence of government, the essence of society is for the betterment of the human person. It's not for the betterment of any vague terminology like the country. What is the country? Who is the country? The country is the woman selling pepper by the roadside. The country is the boy begging by the roadside that cannot pay his school fees. Our laws must be citizen-centered. That's our position in the NGO sector. And so for us, I know that you seem to think that this law is it's a good thing in the sense that is it citizen-centered? Is it good for us? Does it have policies? Do the principles and provisions of the law, does it promote me as a human being, felicitors? Does it promote my business, me being in the NGO sector? Does it help me? And if it doesn't, then we should start hunker down and then see, can we do advocacy for some of these things to be changed? I know it's advocacy on legal policy is extremely difficult. It takes a lot of time. It's not the best way to go, yes, but sometimes it's necessary. So my last word is that I'm happy. You have presented it in a way that looks as if
It's doable.
it's doable. It's not too difficult. I mean, so from what you have said, I like have a checklist.
Yeah.
Number 1, go and register. Number 2, get your team.
Yes.
Number 3, file returns, even if it is 000.
Yes.
Number 4, ask for tax clearance if
Beautiful.
you need it.
Beautiful.
So it seems as if it's we have a checklist that we can follow.
Yeah. So,
But on the issue of paying, we keep on advocating that reduce the. I mean, we would like more reliefs.
Yes. All right.
We would like more reliefs.
Okay. Thank you very much. So if I want to speak on that aspect, right, I'm going to be comparing the old tax system
oh yes.
against the new tax system.
So
Okay,
coming
yeah.
from
You know, as a tax expert or a tax person who has been practicing tax from the old tax system,
Okay.
you are going to see a wide difference in terms of the ease of assessments, ease of understanding of the tax law, and administration as well. The first thing I'm going to mention is what we call unification of codes. And I'm going to break it down. Before the new tax law, we used to have personal income tax acts, separate documents, act of the National Assembly, big document that you need to go and master from A to Z. We have company income tax acts. We have petroleum profit tax acts. We have capital gain tax acts. We have stamp duties tax acts. We have a whole lot of excise duties acts, a whole lot of taxes, different acts. What the new tax law has done is that the new acts has just unified all these codes into one single document.
Okay.
A single document that once you just go through it and understand what is here, you can assess yourself, you can understand the implication on your business, on you as an individual, as touches whether capital gain, whether company income tax, whether personal income tax, whether stamp duties that the bank are charging on the amount of 10,000 naira inflow and above. You understand? You see everything in the same document. That unification of codes is one of the easiest way that I can describe that. Okay, the new tax system brings more ease of administration than the old one. That is one. Now, is it citizen-centered? Like it is people? Is it a people-centered law? The tax liability of maybe on people, individual and companies. Let me start from the companies. Fine, we can say that before we used to have 30% company income tax, and then we now have other rates, maybe 3% education tax. We have police trust tax, we have NITD, we have all those other ones. Now, selling tax and co. Tertiary health acts, you are going to pay tax too on that, and so on like that. Now, the new tax law said, leave those ones, just pay 4% development levy. Right? Making 34%. It looks so huge too. But at the same time, in the old tax law, like I've mentioned, some organizations have been making losses in the last 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. And they still pay minimum tax. And by the time you see the amounts they are going to pay as minimum tax, it's going to be very, very substantial because of the level of the revenue that business is generating.
It's detrimental to